Okay, I'll call this meeting to order at 6:01. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Lori.
Thank you. Chair Simmons,
Here.
Zach Gaynor,
Here.
Patty Burns,
Here.
Evan King,
Here.
Don Weber,
Here.
and Joanna Para and Matt Lyman are both excused this evening. Your ex officio, Counselor Mandy Hagedorn.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. All right, approval of the minutes of June 9th.
I would make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second it. Okay. I have an approval by, first by Dawn, a second by Patty. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comment.
I didn't receive anything before the meeting.
Nobody in the audience.
There's nobody in the audience and there's nobody on Zoom.
Okay. So we will move on to the review, the quarterly report, that's to be sent to the city council.
We're just discussing the summary
That I sent out, yeah,
I mean-
is what'll be sent to them.
I thought it looked good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
Everybody's good?
We need a motion for that.
Consensus is fine. So,
Everybody,
everybody okay
Are
with
you
it?
You're gonna be able to get it, or you're gonna,
well, I'm gonna send it to them.
you don't have to go to the meeting. Okay. Very good.
Right. I lost my way.
Hey, I'll put that on in Monday's packet,
Thank you so much.
so that they. Big time.
All right, B is review urban renewal agency URA rules. Dawn has some questions, about potential funding for the Jesse Mays, through the URA. And so, Bill, I was hoping you could be here to clarify any questions.
Sure, go for it. Questions?
Well, no, I mean, the hard part is most of us probably have never read the document, right? So you have to.
I've read it.
Okay, so you can, but I made some notes here. It's all about, of course, it's tax incremental funding. The beauty of it is it eventually raises a lot of money. We're towards the end of the 20 years, so we have $2.5 million sitting in the bank to be spent somewhere. It's for facilitating area redevelopment. It specializes in improvements to underused spaces. The plan includes parks, it includes public spaces, public facilities projects, just like us. It's set up to provide more community and recreational activities that, you know, our question, Bill, we were trying to get at is why don't we do this hall correctly as the centerpiece for parks, just like the library is the center for the library? Why don't we do the kitchen correctly, make this really nice, could be a meeting place, gathering place, the gym could become a gym again. You know, why don't we, in theory, get $1 million and do it right? So that's what precipitated this discussion is, could we get some of that $2.5 million that's just sitting in there? And again, everything I read over and over said, yeah, they especially recommend focusing on historical buildings. We're one of the top 5 in the city, historical, over 100 years old. We're historical. General facade improvements, whatever. You're supposed to follow the park's master plan, it says in the document. One of the goals in the park master plan is to try to renovate Jesse May. Again, seems to fit. The one big problem is we're currently not in the boundary. The boundaries though are across the street. The key though is at the end of the document, it said, major revisions are complicated. Minor revisions, if it involves a percent. So a small piece of land, you can bring that in with a simple resolution done by the city council, which just this would be under a percent. So according to the way I read the document, this could be brought in. Now, again, what we're talking about for the last year of the 20, I mean, the other way you could do this, of course, is if we get another 20, this whole thing could be in for the next 20. So anyway, Bill,
Hmm?
thoughts?
Well, so. Yeah, I would start with what you mentioned, that it's true that the Jesse Mays, the property isn't in the current urban renewal plan. Or district, and what that means is that any money raised within, any revenue that's generated within that urban renewal district can't be spent on anything outside, so. That is kind of the first most immediate obstacle. Council is, council, we have communicated with council that. The city's urban renewal plan is approaching not only the end of its 20-year timeframe. But, so there needs to be an extension of the ability of urban renewal to happen in North Plains, because if you don't extend what's called the sunset date, the 20-year sunset date. Then you don't get to take on any more projects, because you can't, use money to do it. You can only pay on whatever debt the agency has after that point. That's the only thing you can use money for if the sunset date isn't extended. The other thing that's true, though, is that the current plan that you looked at, most of the projects in there have been done. And so with extension of the sunset date, the urban renewal plan needs to be a substantial amendment, do a new one, basically. Okay. And with that, council can consider, the urban renewal agency, the council can consider modifying the boundary to, take in new and different property when they go through that process. And that's probably when they're gonna want to do it. But having said that, the process of amending the boundary with or without an urban renewal plan is complicated by the fact that we have to work with all of the taxing agencies whose tax revenue our urban renewal agency is getting. That's what the tax increment, and that's what the tax increment is that urban renewal gets, is the fire district, the county, the school district, all these other agencies that are on your tax bill, in the urban renewal district boundary. All those other agencies have said, okay, North Plains, you can have the growth in future property tax revenue that we would have gotten in this area. You can have it, we won't get it. But you have to put it towards projects that grow the tax base, so that when you're all done, there's more taxable development, more taxable improvements, so that we're better off than we would have been as a fire aid district or as a parks district, or whatever the independent agencies are. And when it comes now to changing a boundary to do a purely public project like a park or something, or even now a city hall or anything else, not only has the legislature changed the laws that makes those kinds of projects harder to do, because they don't generate development that's taxable, they're publicly owned improvements. That doesn't mean that you can't do certain ones, it's just that the laws have been changed over time that make it harder to do, because the agencies whose revenue we're getting have a lot more say in what we can do with the boundary, or what we can do on projects. And so I guess what I would say is, it's not up to me to say that can't be done.
So
But
what about the 1% though is the way around it, because it says in the document. Yes, you've got to go through all these steps for a major change.
The
The
thing-
1% change is quite easy.
we would still, under current state law, need to consult with all of them. A lot of laws have changed about urban renewal since 2006, 2007.
But aren't we bound by the previous document?
The document that we have binds us in terms of the types of projects and how we can spend the money and where the district is, but there have been laws since then that we do have to be compliant with. Since the plan, so there are elements of, part of the reason why we have to do a new updated plan is to be in compliance with state laws expressly in the plan.
But
So,
it seems like if we could ask the attorney, if we could use the 1% rule under the current rule, that would be the advantage to get it done now, because there's a couple million in there. I agree, in this new 20-year plan, it might be much more restrictive. But we're bound by this old document. The old document makes it pretty easy to bring in 1%.
I think you'll find that state law has changed such that partner agencies may poo-poo that idea, knowing that we're going to do a whole new plan update anyway.
So you're saying they wouldn't have let you do the city hall?
Potentially, I don't know. That's why when we do the plan update, it's important that we go through this process with all the partner agencies so they understand what they're giving up, what's going to be done with the money they give up. They get a lot more say in that than they did before.
In the new.
Well, even now with an old plan. Well, we have a plan that's adopted, but it's a plan. It's not law, it's a plan. So we have to make sure we can do what we would like to do, even if it's in the plan, it is consistent with state law.
Yeah, that would be my only thing, if we could get a definitive answer on that, because obviously there's $2.5 million, we don't know what we're gonna do. It implies in the document, we can do what I'm saying, which
There's
is,
an adopted budget for the urban renewal agency. We know what we're doing with that.
well, it's pretty broad and vague, where the 3.3 million we're gonna have is already figured out.
We have adopted an amount of reserves we're not going to spend, and we have an adopted amount of spending by very specific categories consistent with Oregon state law on budgeting. So we know what we'll do with the money. It's not just sitting there. And to suggest that wouldn't be consistent with state law when council adopted the budget that's fully compliant. So there is money that we're not planning on spending, but reserves are drawn down in this budget. It was adopted because there are planned projects already. That's why it's important to do a new urban renewal plan, identify new projects in a process that's consistent with law. Oregon, chapter 457 of statute, ORS 457, that's the chapter about urban renewal. And so you can take a look at your own, but we're gonna have a consultant come in and discuss all this so that we know we're doing this properly. It's a tricky thing because at the end of the day, urban renewal uses other taxing districts' money, their tax revenue, and they agree to give it up, but we have to live up to an end of a bargain to do certain things.
Yes.
So, well, are we still on track to have the, for the URA meeting on the 21st? For the consultant?
Her availability is probably not freeing up until early September.
Okay.
Yeah, between vacation and just, it kind of boils down to, she's about the only consultant left in the state that does this.
Wow.
There used to be a number of other firms that did it, but just frankly, people getting older, passing, she's the last one. So it's just a matter of getting on her schedule.
Being busy is a good problem, I guess.
Well, there's too busy, and then there's Monopoly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elaine Howard is her name.
Thank you.
So I guess what I wanna say is, I'm not telling you can't add Jesse Mays as a project to the urban renewal plan. But just know that a lot of laws have changed and made certain things harder. Purely public projects that aren't in aid of encouraging private development to happen are harder to do. And that's just simply because we have a lot of partner agencies who have gone to the legislature together and made it harder, put more and more constraints on what cities can do with urban renewal. And lawsuits, frankly. So we just want to tread very carefully when it comes to a purely public project with urban renewal and urban plans. That's all.
Or maybe the best way to sum it up is that before we can even really think about it, we'd have to get a lot of people on board. Of partner agencies.
That's fair.
That would take probably quite a bit of work.
Meetings,
Lots more.
lots more meetings, lots more meetings.
Mhm. Okay, Bill, could you state for us your background on URA?
Yeah,
We'd just like to have it on record.
yeah, sure. So before I joined the city, as finance director for the better part of 20 years, I did work on, urban renewal, feasibility and planning for a number of different agencies in the state. I think the last big one I did before I took the job here was for the city of Cornelius to help them with their early feasibility for their urban renewal agency that they have now, and then some early work on it, so. No, I've done a number of plans throughout the state, typically on smaller communities, not like Portland and it's 25 or whatever urban renewal agencies they have. But yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's interesting.
Mhm. Right, thank you.
There are no problem.
Any other questions, Dawn?
Nope.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? No? All right, we'll move on to new business. I just, had Lori share the, email that I got from Cindy that, they're still working on getting that, address. The list of addresses, names and addresses to be able to send the letters out for fundraising for the Parks Foundation. So I have no idea when it's gonna happen. But it's still on their list of things to do, so
Do they have a full team now, a full board?
I believe there's like 4 of them. 4,
Haven't been to a meeting yet.
No.
It doesn't sound like a full board, but
yeah.
I know they've lost some and had trouble getting,
Mhm.
so.
I mean, we probably need some sort of backup plan, or I mean, realistically, we might eventually get the letter and get 5,000 or 10,000. And we're gonna still not be where we wanna be, so we're probably. at
Well,
some
we
point-
could get more than that, cause they know some people with some pretty deep pockets, so. We could potentially get what we were asking for.
We just need to find those pockets.
But if they knew deep pockets, why not just go ask them right away? They don't have to wait for a bulk mailing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Rules and regulations,
Yeah.
maybe,
Pardon?
that maybe rules and regulations are just trying to get the most out of it.
Don't know.
Cause I know a lot of people, when you do charitable events, some of the people with the deeper pockets will usually match the amount that can be gathered. So maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know what angle they're trying to work towards, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you.
I'll tell you when I finally get. to
That
the
would be
meeting.
great. All right, well. Let's see. I think, next we have. Am I still in the minutes? Board and staff comments.
I have one. You have one?
Yes, you.
Comments and some staff?
Yes, you can.
I wasn't at the last meeting after the budget was adopted by city council, but what I did want to say was council did, the council did adopt a budget that includes a position that's called program supervisor. And that person, that position is going to be responsible for working on a parks programming plan and then launching it. And kind of growing some kind of North Plains size and funding appropriate parks programming. Probably heavily volunteer driven and figuring out which things to do first. Is it yoga? Is it after school programs? Is it a combination? How do we get all that launched so that, we do something and we have something for folks, but at the same time, it's, like I said, probably volunteer driven. And then that person, because that's gonna be a bit of a process and ramp up, that person also is going to be involved in what they're called the program supervisor. The position would also be involved in kind of community outreach work, communication work, and, kind of be more involved in usage of the Jesse Mays and events, and it'll be the point person for all the events the city does and that sort of thing, kind of the outward facing stuff.
Okay.
And then over time, probably the position will change a bit because parks programming will pick up in busyness. So, but that's with time. But anyway, council adopted the budget, that position's in there. I think the only uncertainty about, the next question will be, well, when are we hiring that person, right? And I think during the process, what became clear to the budget committee and then council was there's very much a need for, parks activities and programming and more communication and outreach and stuff by the city. But at the same time, there's also, loud voices and concern about public safety and the need for another police officer in the budget. And at adoption time, at the city council meeting, what kind of came out was, this, how do we balance that? Should we cut one to have the other? And, actually, I think it was with Councilor Hagedorn, we had this conversation with her, and I said, well, I wouldn't cut one or the other. I would approve the budget that includes both of these things, but then we come back. The other control council has on when we spend the money on a position, including this one or whatever. If it's a new position like program supervisor, council has to approve the job description because it doesn't exist yet. It's in the budget that we can spend money on it, but we don't have a position yet. So council gets to, feel more comfortable about the funding situation, where there's lack of comfort about it. What do we do about public safety, additional need, and what we also have this need. So we're going to go through a process of getting some outreach and results, to kind of better understand. We know we need parks programming, but we want to kind of go through a process to figure out, okay, what do we really need for public safety? We hear quite a few people say we need it in their social media posts, but let's have a town hall and let's do a poll and actually get people actively engaged, more people than just the typical ones that go on and post something on Ring or what have you on the community page. Let's kind of actually try to get some new information and even some direct engagement in a town hall. And then once we have a better idea of really what we need for public safety, then we have a better idea of how to balance the parks, the program supervisor position. So that's kind of where that is, but it's in the budget. It's explicitly an FTE that's added. And so it's just kind of, I think we have some work to do regarding the balance between that and public safety and where council wants to land on it. But it's, the stage is set.
We ponder a bit, I wrote in on it, but the part for me that was very awkward. It just felt at some level almost unethical. I'm comfortable if the budget committee and somebody else says we can't afford parks person, it's left out. But it wasn't left out, it was in there. And then at the last minute, well, we'll keep it in, but we'll just never hire them. We're gonna pause. That to me just feels wrong. It's in the budget. Now, it could have gone back to the budget committee, but as Jake says, well, that'd be complicated. That'd be an extra meeting. We don't do that. Let's just leave it in there, but then not fill it. I guess I'm uncomfortable with that. It seems to me it's in the budget. That person should be hired, I guess is my thing. It seems weird to me that the city council is gonna just decide how long they pause. Yes, city council.
I didn't hear about, or that message didn't land for me personally when I was at that
Pardon?
meeting. That message that you just said, that sentiment did not land for me at that meeting. I remember the conversation being more of, we're voting on the funds. The funds are in our plan of record, and moving forward, we would have a town hall to guide and inform prioritization.
Well, the word pause, it's in, I watched the video the other day, the discussion of pausing it. And Bill had said, which he said now, he said, well, you'll have control because I'll send you the job description and you can just delay approving it and then that position will never be hired. And the group went, oh, that's good. That seems a bit weird to me. I realize it could have been taken out of the budget, but it's in there. And it seems to me that that person should just be hired. Again, I'm a big fan of finding the money for the police. It just seemed very odd to me that the two got set off against each other. There was no discussion of, well, let's hold back a library person, let's hold back public works, but somehow they were dueling, and the other odd part of it was already in the budget at halftime. It was just become full, but it's saving 126,000 because it's, you know, as Counselor McCall Wallace said. So anyway, that's just me. I felt like since it's still in there, I'm hoping that it's not gonna be delayed for a year, that that person will just get hired. And I don't really see why there's more process needed for that. Certainly for police, I'm just confused why the two seem intertwined. You know, it's a very small amount of money to add it since it saves communications salary. So that, it's not a salary for the contract. Anyway.
The only follow-up I would have is just, you know, an adopted kind of consistent with, you know, what Councilor Hagedorn said. You know, an adopted budget is just the authorized amount of money to spend and what for, but there's nothing in there about plan. And that is council prerogative. I mean, there's certain things I have to pay for the insurance premiums on the water pipeline and all, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that the budget's adopted, we have business to do, I have to spend money on these contracts. But when it comes to things that are new, different, additional, there's council prerogative to take on a new job description and employee. So a budget doesn't dictate when, but it just allows for that amount of money to be spent. That's all it does.
Would that position be like full-time, part-time? What would the salary range be? Any idea on that stuff?
Full-time, it's about 67 to around 90 in 6 pay steps.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It'd be a fun job.
But it's
So,
a
yeah,
shared
yeah, I
duty.
think
A
you're right.
lot to do, the communication piece, it's a big
Oh, yeah.
add-on.
Yeah, when the time comes to pull the trigger, I think we're gonna get a lot of people apply for it because it's just for that. For somebody who's not an introvert, it's a great job. You know, we can find an extrovert with some, I can imagine the job would drive an introvert crazy. But for somebody who has that background and that personality, it's kind of a neat mix of stuff. And they get to be the person to really kind of launch the city's true parks programming. So I think we'll get a lot of people to apply. It's just we're kind of stepping into new fiscal water and new leadership, and I think the folks on council just wanted to feel really, really sure the time was right, that's all.
And just because it's in there doesn't mean it has to be spent, right?
Correct,
It doesn't have to be what?
Spent.
it doesn't have to be.
Because I know that there's been budget for like fireworks for several years, but it's not,
It can be
it's not
saved and
gonna-
carried over, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
So,
I mean, from my perspective, I would love to see the position hired ASAP, because that person by part of the scope of work, as I said, is just enhancement of not just launching the parks, figuring out a parks program, working on a plan and launching it with council blessing. But just communication, appoint person for all the events, for Jesse Mays Reynolds, I would love that person to be here now. There are several staff people in different departments are doing elements of that, and one person just doing it, we'd just do a better job of it. So I would love to see that position created and started ASAP, so I look forward to nudging council into a place of feeling better about it.
Mandy.
Unrelated topic, the dog park, at Sunset Ridge, what's going on with that?
There's been quite a bit of communication with it, but, so. What we did communicate with, they submitted a revised, land use application, and there isn't a ton for the city, to get involved in with what they wanna do, but there were kind of a couple big things that, we put on them. And then come back and verify what they did. Number one was, the property can't be used as a private HOA member park only. It has to be available to all residents of North Plains. And that kind of goes back to how parks were planned legally in the development agreement between the city and Sunset Ridge. with the developers then. So in Sunset Ridge, there can't be a purely private park. Now they can, the HOA might own the land, but it has to be available to the public through a public easement. And then the second thing was, we charged them with making sure with school admin, whether it's the principal or Hillsborough School District admin in Hillsborough. But if they're going to use the entirety of that property from east to west, the west side of the entire property a parcel that they want to look at using for the dog park is a fence between the playground of the school on the west side, and then the east side would be the dog park. And we wanted them to check with the school and make sure they understood and were okay with what their plan was. Because, kids' hands, dogs' teeth, not always a good mix, that sort of thing. So if the school district said, we don't like that idea, maybe a different type of fence, maybe the fence is moved back a little bit so that there was no, but anyway, we're waiting to hear definitively from the school district, whether it's the principal or somebody at Hillsborough headquarters of the school district. That's kind of the only thing.
Is that really a legal? I mean, to me, that's a bit of a awkward issue, like I was walking the other day by the other school.
Mhm.
And it has 2 or 3 blocks, probably a dozen homes with backyards and gates and fences, and clearly there's been no. I guess to me, that's a bit. I'm not sure that makes sense legally, that they can't do it without the school's permission, because I don't understand the legality of that. Now, the other thing is, truthfully, it's not next to the playground.
It is, it
The way-
backs right to it.
The way it goes is there's a fake field. Next to the fake field is a bunch of a dead grass area that is basically not usable because they don't maintain it. So the kids don't play in the area adjacent, they play on the fake turf. And the fake turf is next to the natural area.
Right.
So, and I talked to them, it's not really a big deal, they could very easily, which isn't a bad idea. They said they can just buy this cloth that basically keeps the dogs in. I mean, I'm not really sure you could get bit by much of a dog through chain link, but they could easily put this cloth.
Puts their hand through the.
I don't think they'd be opposed to put some
Well,
cloth there.
Here's the deal, the city would require a public easement so that the public could be there, and given that that's the case, we have to look out for public safety in a way that an HOA by itself doesn't have to. So it's not a matter of the school district giving permission. We want to have them register any concerns and what they would prefer to see done to make it safer, not to give them veto power on it, so that's the difference. So if they say, yeah, there's a cloth covering or slats through the fence or whatever that would prevent hands from going through or something. Great, thank you for the recommendation, and that's what we're gonna have done. But we just don't want a situation where, because it's one of those things, a kid gets bit down the road. Didn't anybody notice that this is right next to a school?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to avoid.
One more, sorry. So it sounds like we're doing our due diligence with regards to the location, which is great, because agreed, the school is a tricky location indeed. Dog park scared me personally, but that's another story. My other question is, I'm aware that there were many residents that were concerned with the park.
Right.
Before, and it sounds like we're kind of in the vetting process and doing a reasonableness test. For 60 degrees, right? But before we proceed, would we do a community, connect or some sort of notification process? Or how do these things work?
See, well, that's the funny part of it, is that, the city doesn't really, have, like an approval process for it.
Okay,
Sort of like if it was a different type of development or even a new part. So at the end of the day, it's between residents who oppose it of the HOA and their own board.
got it. So it's kind of considered a private.
It's a private decision-making process, but we are looking to make sure there are certain, there's public access, and then the potential, does the school view there to be a safety risk that can be solved by something?
Thank you.
But we as a city don't get to approve it or not approve it. It's between those residents and their HOA board.
Thank you for clarifying.
So my, daughter and son-in-law live on that street.
Okay.
And he went to the last HOA meeting. And there's 3 people on the board. One person doesn't say anything, the other 2 women run it, and they're just shutting everybody down. They're making the decision to go forward.
Yeah.
So I told him
It's just the way.
it's time to maybe elect new board members if you're not liking that they're not going out to the entire community of Sunset Ridge and getting feedback on it, because what do the parents of children who go to that school think?
Yeah.
Right?
It's,
How did they feel about it?
I mean, I've been very involved because I had a dog, so I checked everything out. I really think it's a very minor issue. The dog people are very careful. They would be willing. I'm sure there could be a way to figure out so dogs' noses can't get through the fence. In fact, the weirdest one ever is there's coyotes that have approached the chain link fence on the school part, and they've never done anything to keep the coyote nose out. But anyway, I think that can all be resolved. I'm a member of the HOA board of phase 1, not phase 2. But again, the way HOA,
Separate ones?
yeah, we have 2, because we have 2 builders.
Yeah.
But anyway, the board has a lot of power in these situations. If they wanted to change that, they should change who's on the board, and then
That's
they
what I
have.
said, and she said they're up for election now, they're running, I'm like.
But
well,
to
this
be
is the time
honest-
to Make the change.
The vast majority likes the idea. We have tons of dog owners. They're always in HOA
Here's
issues.
the thing, though, my concern is parking. Because once it starts raining in town, they're not gonna go to the one in town at Pacific Park. They're gonna go to the next closest dog park, which is over there. And where are they gonna park?
There's probably
It's a dead-end street.
10 spots.
It's a dead end street, and half the neighbors park on the right side of the street as well. So there's very limited parking. Dustin.
I was just going to recap. I can't remember if it was before last meeting or the meeting before is when I actually got the call from the residents about this. So I'm the one who investigated it from the very beginning. It was like right before, I think it was the last meeting. And when I came out there and they started talking about the HOA was doing this, at first glance, it was like, this is an HOA issue. This is not something that the city gets involved with. However, I was investigating whether or not that they were putting a fence within the right of way, which that's kind of what my jurisdiction was. And because I looked at, hey, the fence wasn't going to be in the right of way. Oh, by the way, they didn't have a permit for the fence. And so with that, that's when the investigation kind of started, was first of all, they didn't get a permit for the fence. And of course, this probably would have came up with, well, if we have a fence right next to, the school grounds, do we need to change the type of fence, that kind of thing? And that's when everything should have been handled immediately, was with the proper fence permit. Since then, it just kind of, I wouldn't say blown up out of proportion, but it turned into a much bigger deal than it probably could have been. But ultimately, it really is kind of an HOA thing, and the way I see it. And as far as whether, we require the fabric fencing or whatever, I think that's more of like just doing our due diligence with the school district and making sure, is this okay? Do you have any concerns about that? Kind of a neighborly agreement, and we're just kind of the intermediary between that, but we really should be taking a whole lot of time and effort on this particular thing, because it's more of a strictly HOA issue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, that's basically correct. I mean, we're not involved in the decision to do it or don't do it, but, we do want the HOA to properly get the input that they need to make sure it's safe, particularly given that there will be a public easement.
yes.
And so we will have, if somebody gets bitten, if anybody gets hurt, if we have to get in there to help somebody. At one of the houses, because there's a medical emergency in there, there's cars parked with dog, blah, 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 on. So we do have an extra, we have an extra level of responsibility because of that, that's all.
I mean, the good news is this makes the neighborhood much safer for dogs because there's always people who let their dogs off leash because they want to throw a ball. And they still do it now. They do it at the big park, they do it in some of the areas, and now they'll have a place in a fence. So you don't have to worry as much about a dog off leash running over to you or your kid. I do think, and I'll pass on to them, I don't think it's a hard fix and unreasonable. Just figure out a way the chain link, a hand or a nose can't go through it. I think that's reasonable. I think they could do that and just let the school know. Like I said, the awkward part for me is I don't think we wanna pretend there's a law that says if the school doesn't agree to this, we can't do it. I think it's just being neighborly and they could talk to the school and again, I've talked to some of the school people and they go, we don't care, the kids don't even go over there. But it doesn't hurt, like you said, just in case the nose and whatever. And it also helps control the coyote entry into the neighborhood, which is actually a bigger danger issue than dogs.
They can come right through the end of the street.
It just limits their, they have to go down farther. There's more fencing now and it gives them less access points. They can still sneak through, but
Mhm.
they do wander sometimes and they're a much bigger concern than the dogs there. If you have cats.
Jesus off our.
Anyway, I can pass along. It sounds like the biggie is cover the chain link with some. Yeah.
Anything else from staff?
Garlic Festival
Yeah,
coming up. That'll happen before the next meeting, right?
yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, so there won't be a regular meeting.
Okay.
But it will be your month to meet in a work session with city council. And at 6 o'clock before their second meeting of the month. And you'll get a reminder, you'll get an email reminder for the work session, but they are meeting with each board. At least once a year. They've just started this process. In fact, Monday is their first one. Well, they met with planning, but they're meeting with economic development Monday at 6. In August, it's Parks Board, and you're not having your meeting because Garlic Festival will be in full swing.
Yeah.
Um,
So do they have an agenda that they're gonna share with us?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have a template after the EDC. I mean, it's really just kind of meant to, so the EDC with their, when they became a permanent body, they put in their new rules. That they would, on a quarterly basis, either send a written report of a progress report of everything they're doing, or go and read it, talk about it, at a meeting. And so what this is just kind of that from all of you together. And then at the same time, council asking you questions and potentially asking you to take a look into something or, and come back with a recommendation sort of thing. It's meant to be two-way, rather than you all being, you're kind of mostly independent, doing whatever. But it's meant to be more of a kind of a dialogue on a regular basis. Thanks for all you're doing and, oh, we did that. And then council kind of bringing things to you that, they kind of hope you'll take on and work on. I mean, did I get any of that wrong? There you go.
Session, and really, how can the council help, Parks and Rec and vice versa? Feels like from today, there's a lot of opportunities.
For other things that are going on, we've got, the car show, the All Ford Car Show is coming up pretty soon. We also have the National Night Out is coming up soon. The Pumpkin Ridge Run is also coming up, all kind of in the same time frame, and of course Garlic Festival.
Are they coming through town with that race?
The race is going through part of North Avenue on the 2nd. But they're not closing any of it down. They're going to be staying off to the side and they've kind of arranged it so they don't have to do any road closures, but they will have a traffic control company out there on the side streets for safety, but there's not going to be any road closures, but they'll start off at the North Plains Elementary School again this year. And we had a meeting that was coordinating with the construction company that was out there, making sure everything was going to be okay for that run as well.
I mean, I'm a runner and I've done the race before and I'm not impressed with what they're doing with this race at all. I mean, they're running Shady Brook. And a lot of the people I've talked to, the runners, I talked to the race leaders, I said, have you ever run Shady Brook? I have. Shady Brook's a highway. And their thing is, well, be careful, watch for traffic, but runners presume, like I did the Helvetia half marathon, you start at the stadium and circle it up through the hills. Every road is closed. You know, again, it's not our fault, the city's fault, but it's not a well-run race to have people running totally on unclosed roads, you know, especially that Shady Brook section. Anyway, they've got their own insurance.
That's also not the city's jurisdiction over there.
Pardon?
That's not the city's jurisdiction over there either.
Well, no,
It's all county.
that's what I'm saying. There's nothing you can do that the way they're doing it. I'm not saying you should have kept them from doing it. I'm just disappointed that they're not being more responsible because,
They've always been that way.
pardon,
They've always been that way.
kind of irresponsible.
Very.
Yeah.
Every year since they started it here. It's been nothing but trouble.
And it's kind of scary watching them run up Glencoe and there's nobody there stopping traffic or
Directing
anything.
people where to go. I mean,
They did.
we had people all over the town.
I mean, I talked to them, because when you run long races, you're told to run into traffic. So for a while, they're running out and back, out and then back. So what you had is people on both sides of the road.
Oh, gosh.
And the car's going down the middle, and then they're yelling at people saying, you were supposed to be on this side, and then and runners that are tired aren't good. Anyway, it is what it is. I'm not trying to criticize, there's nothing more the city could do, but Patty has had that same experience. It's not a group.
That's why they are not a part of the Garlic Festival anymore.
Yeah, it's just,
We were done with them.
yeah.
It's too much of a liability.
We did have some issues a couple of years ago when they were starting in other places in town, but I think the new venue and the starting place where they're at is significantly better and more beneficial for their run.
They also aren't that good at putting out signs they didn't have that many signs out, which is like, where to turn and when to.
Yeah. Does, any, board members have any comments?
I mean, maybe it's been figured out, but, I talked to Cody a little bit once, cause I'm in Sunset Ridge, you know, the big park now that's the city's. Part of the sprinklers over by the basketball courts, it doesn't look like they've been fixed yet, so the little cone hill is dying and then the turf next to the basketball court's dying. The other sprinklers got fixed, it looks like, you can tell there's some green, the rest is still. Doesn't look like it's received water yet this year, so I'm sure there's some problem that he's trying to figure out, but.
Yeah, that's part of the problems of getting a new property and making sure that everything is working. We are working on making everything work. So it takes time to identify. But yes, we are working on it.
Yeah.
Well, Hagerdorn, did you have any comments?
No comments. Looking forward to the Garden Festival.
Yay.
Elephant ears.
Yes, we have our old elfin ear person back.
Yay.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
So,
We're
well,
excited
they're
about that.
family, but they use the same.
same recipe, so
Doesn't
yes. Mhm. Okay, well. If there's nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:50.
Thank you.
We have a returning guy in a stinky costume.
Maybe.